Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the New Year 6 podcast. Today I'll be doing my week 2 recap, an exciting big week in college football. Go conference by conference, highlight some games, players of the week, reveal my newest top 25 rankings, and then get us ready for week 3. So just kicking us off, I'm going to start with the American Conference, just kind of take a look at what they did this week. Ultimately, if you're looking at it from a winning perspective, they didn't do too well. The games that they did win were kind of up in the air for the most part. UTSA, ekes out a win against Texas State, so they were able to beat Texas State, but Baylor can't. I don't know what to make of either of those, but I think it's a little funny. Navy beat up on Wagner. Rice with the almost lost it. They were up 28-0, tied up 28-28, won it in overtime against Houston. So a Group of 5 win over a Power 5 school. Big points there to Rice. USF with a close win over Florida A&M. So again, not looking fantastic for the rest of the year. And then Memphis, the only one who looks quality from top to bottom, with a decisive win over Arkansas State. On the American side, players of the week, I really want to focus on that Rice win over Houston, since it is the best win of the week for me personally. Anytime a Group of 5 squad upsets a Power 5 squad, you got to give them their flowers. So Luke McCaffrey on Rice, you may know his brother. I know he's on my fantasy team, so you may know him. But Luke McCaffrey, receiver at Rice, 7 catches, 99 yards, and 2 TDs. That's a big performance against a school that's favored to beat you and favored to come out in the head. And on defense, Coleman Coco, 4 tackle performance, 2 assists, 2 sacks and 2 sacks/tackles for loss. So even these type of stat lines and these type of performances, in my eyes, I do factor in the quality of opponent that somebody has. So in my eyes, 500 yards passing against an FCS squad is not more impressive than 300 yards passing against a Power 5 squad, or something to that capacity. So congratulations to Rice on that win. Luke McCaffrey, your 2 TDs, 7 catches, 99 yards. Coleman Coco, your 4 tackles, 2 sacks. Big day for Rice, beating a Power 5 squad, and kind of making a claim for the Americans so far. Just kind of showing them that they are here to play in their new conference, and they'll beat people outside of it and inside of it. So next up, we're going to move over to the ACC, see what they did here. A lot of success this week for them. Louisville off to the races against Murray State. Florida State breezed by Southern Miss, no problem there. North Carolina struggling with App State, taking them to overtime. They struggled with App State last year too. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the team, the state, whatever. But North Carolina does eke out a tight win against a fairly quality team, but not to the degree that we've seen. Not as good as South Carolina, not as good as LSU, not as good as Clemson or Texas A&M or these other teams that teams in this conference have gotten marquee wins against so far this year. Duke with a big win over Lafayette. Miami with the win of the week in the conference, a fairly decisive victory over Texas A&M, and we'll go back to them for our players of the week in a little bit. Clemson opening up the floodgates against Charleston Southern. Wake Forest with a fairly tight win against Vanderbilt. I don't know if that means Vanderbilt's bad, Wake Forest is good, somewhere in the middle, but we'll figure out what Wake Forest really is as the season progresses. Boston College with a close win against Holy Cross. Boston College is rough right now. They're not making a bowl game. They're losing in Northern Illinois, squeaking out a win against Holy Cross. Jeff Hafley is a dead man walking. Georgia Tech with a big win over South Carolina State, and then Syracuse with a big win over Western Michigan. So let's go back to Miami for our offensive and defensive players of the week. Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback for Miami, 374 yards and 5 touchdowns through the air. The guy that Miami needed him to be, the guy that they've gassed him up to be for so long, the guy who took over after De'Aaron King was supposed to lead Miami to the promised land. He delivered this week. Like, he stepped up and beat a quality opponent at home and cemented them as a force to be reckoned with, not just in their conference but outside of it. So got to give it up for Tyler Van Dyke for making that happen. And then Cameron Kitchens on the defensive side. 4-tackle performance, a pass defended, an interception, a fumble recovery. Guy was a turnover machine or turnover causing machine in that game. And a performance like that, those 2 takeaways, Texas A&M could score on those. And I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if Miami got any points off the turnovers, but those are points taken off the board if Kitchens doesn't recover those. So, that type of performance and that type of ability to make plays for your team in a high-pressure environment is the difference between winning and losing. So Tyler Van Dyke, Cameron Kitchens, you are the ACC offensive and defensive player of the week after a good win at home against a ranked opponent. You got to give them credit, and Miami's a ranked squad now. So we'll move over to the Big 12. Kansas kicked off Friday night with a close win against Illinois. Texas with the win of the week anywhere in the world with their coming into Tuscaloosa, Bryant-Denny Stadium, beating Alabama, on the road. Like the pressure is mounting around them, and they stepped up and delivered. And they deserve their top 10, top 5 spot in the AP. They're probably now the team to beat in the Big 12. If we really look at quality of resume so far, Texas is the number 1 squad. Kansas State came out with a big win against Troy. Oklahoma struggling against SMU. Keep an eye on them, kind of see what's going on there. BYU blowing out Southern Utah. West Virginia blowing out Duquesne. Cincinnati with a good win here. Cincinnati with a quality early season win against Pitt. A close one there, but they got the job done on the road. Keep an eye on the Cincinnati squad. I had some doubts going into the season, but so far they're looking good, and they've got a Power 5 win on their resume. There aren't too many teams in this conference or out of it that have that type of resume so far. So keep an eye on them. I think we'll be talking about them in a little bit, but for right now, they're a team you gotta watch in this conference. UCF ekes out a win against Boise State on the road on some sort of ridiculous 50-plus yard field goal at the buzzer. A win's a win. I'm sure UCF wants to see that win be larger and kind of more dominant, but you got out of it with a win, and you got Villanova this week, so no harm, no foul. You'll win that one, start off 3-0. TCU bounces back with a win against Nichols. And Oklahoma State with a double-digit win against Arizona State. So and that one on the road as well. So good for Oklahoma State. I know Arizona State's struggling right now, but OK State stood up and delivered. In terms of players of the week on offense, this is the week of Quinn Ewers. There's no question in my eyes. 349 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, 11 yards rushing, and then a 3-yard catch. The difference maker between Texas winning and Texas losing. He's the guy. He's firmly cemented himself as as one of the as one of the front runners in the conference, as leading Texas to a conference championship appearance or win. It's Texas's to lose right now. I don't think that's much of an overreaction, because they've been the ones who've stepped up so far. So Quinn Ewers, you're the guy on offense. On defense, I'm going to split it between 2. I'll stick with Texas for a second. I'll go Anthony Hill Jr., 4 tackles, and then 2 sacks, tackles for loss. So just being able to get at Jalen Milroe, getting past this Alabama O-line, making those decisive decisive plays and cementing himself in the Alabama backfield is gigantic for that for Texas's momentum. So got to give it up for Anthony Hill. But outside of that game, I do want to go to that Oklahoma State-Arizona State game, the late night 5-tackle performance and a sack out of Nicholas Martin on Oklahoma State. I know Arizona State's struggling right now. I know Oklahoma State's trying to find their identity, but that's a big-time performance against a Power 5 school. As much as Arizona State's struggling, it's a Power 5 school. Got to give them credit. So Nicholas Martin on Oklahoma State, Anthony Hill Jr. on Texas on defense, and then Quinn Ewers on offense are your Big 12 players of the week. Moving on to the Big 10 here. Indiana kicking things off with a big win over Indiana State. Michigan, taking care of business against UNLV, not looking dominant, but doing what they got to do. Same with Ohio State against Youngstown State. Same score even, 35-7. Penn State blowing out Delaware, not even close. Purdue with a close win. Purdue with a close win versus Virginia Tech. Iowa, beating their in-state rival in a close one. Still not at that 25-point mark, so Ferentz Watch is officially still underway. Michigan State with a big win against Richmond. UTEP blowing out, or Northwestern blowing out UTEP. They kind of found their footing again after a rough one against Rutgers there. Maryland with a fairly close one against Charlotte, but again, win's a win. Minnesota taking care of business against Eastern Michigan, kind of close one, a little bit more low scoring, and then Rutgers knocking out Temple. So with that in mind, the offensive players of the week are going to be, I'm going to go with the Purdue Virginia Tech game as my offensive player of the week. I want to go with Devin Mockobee, or Mockobee. I'm going to say Mockobee. 95-yard rushing and a touchdown, and then a 12-yard catch, helping him cement his team's performance against Virginia Tech. I know they're both kind of those on-the-bubble type programs trying to figure out their identity right now, but Mockobee was one of the reasons why Purdue pulled ahead. So Devin Mockobee, take your time in the sun. You are the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week. And on defense, when in doubt, go with Iowa. So I'm going to give it up to Sebastian Castro, a 3-tackle performance, but more importantly, that pick six. When you only win by 7 points and you get a pick six, that's the difference maker. That's the score that puts you ahead. And remember, if we're looking at Ferentz Watch, those 6 points that your defense scores counts towards his numbers. So Sebastian Castro making the plays, making an impact against your in-state rival, moving Iowa up to 2-0, on the bubble of being ranked again, but they got it done in a close one on the road as well. So Sebastian Castro on defense, Devin Mockobee on offense. You are the Big Ten Players of the Week. Next up, we've got Conference USA. So again, just from a winning perspective, Liberty gets an in-conference win over New Mexico State, fairly big one as well. FIU coming out swinging against North Texas, getting the upset there, and taking home a win for Conference USA. Louisiana Tech taking care of business against Northwestern State, and then Western Kentucky doing the same against Houston Christian. Since Conference USA only has 2 wins against Group of 5 competition, your players of the week are going to have to come from those games for the most part. So on offense, I want to give it up to Liberty. Quarterback Caden Slater, 276 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, 43 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So 4-touchdown performance against a conference opponent. It's a big time opportunity to showcase what he's made of, what he can do, and how he can elevate this Liberty team, and so far he's been doing it. So got to give it up to Caden Slater, Kadon Slater, who made it happen for Liberty. Those 4 touchdowns combined, you only win 33-16. You take 1 or 2 of those away, New Mexico State can flip it the other way for you, no problem. So got to give it up to Kadon Slater, who made it happen for Liberty this week, brought home the win, and is the Conference USA Offensive Player of the Week. On defense, I want to flip it over to FIU with a big win against North Texas, one that I don't think a lot of people saw coming, but I want to give it up to Hezekiah Masses on defense, a 2-tackle performance, but most importantly, the pick six. I'm a big fan of the pick six. If you get one of those, your odds of shooting up the charts to becoming a player of the week, they rise astronomically. So Hezekiah Masses with that pick six, sets the tone for what's ahead. When you only win by a touchdown, that pick six is the difference maker. Masses was the one who made that happen, was the difference maker, and put it all together for FIU. So Hezekiah Masses, you are the Defensive Player of the Week for Conference USA. Kadon Slater, you are the Offensive Player of the Week for Conference USA. Great job to both of you, and great job to both your schools for making it happen. Looking at the independents this week, so only 2 winners here because UMass and UConn lost. Notre Dame with a good win, at at NC State. Tough weather conditions; it was brutal down there, and then Army blew out Delaware State. So my offensive and defensive player of the week are both coming from Notre Dame. This week they earn it. This week it's not just because they're the only team that won in the independents. These two players earned it. Audric Estime is establishing himself as one of the best running backs in all of college football. Had 134 yards and 2 touchdowns, on the ground, 2 catches for 22 yards against NC State. So good on him. Good on him for establishing that run game. I mean, this Notre Dame team looks legit. We'll get to the top 25 rankings in a little bit, but this Notre Dame team is looking like a real threat to disrupt a few teams' hopes and dreams and maybe make the playoffs. On defense, I'm going to go with Benjamin Morrison, a 3-tackle performance, one of those being a tackle for loss, and then a pass defended that ended up being an interception. So just being all over the field, being in the backfield, being in the secondary, doing what he needs to do to make this happen. But Benjamin Morrison and Audric Estime were key factors into Notre Dame's win over NC State, so they will be the independent offensive and defensive players of the week. Moving on now to the MAC. So we do have a few winners here. Central Michigan in a close one against University of New Hampshire. Bowling Green, doing what they need to do against Eastern Illinois. Miami, Ohio, taking care of business against UMass. Toledo blowing out Texas Southern. Ohio in a close one against FAU. Pretty quality win if we're looking at who the matchups are this week. And then Akron in a very close one against Morgan State. So offensive and defensive players of the week, I'm going to give them both to Miami. Just a high level of quality performances there, for both offense and defense in Miami this week. So on offense, I got to give it up to Gage Larvadain. I'm gonna guess that's how you say his name. An 8-catch, 273-yard, 3-touchdown performance against UMass. Those 3 catches alone would put you at 21. So his QB and running backs just need to do a little bit more to secure the win, and that's all they need to do. So when a performance like that comes to life, I honestly don't think Miami wins this without him. Just straight up. You can't have that type of amazing stat line and have it not work out for you. So got to give it up for Gage Larvadain on Miami for making that happen against UMass. And then on defense, I'm going to give it up to Matthew Salopek. A 5-tackle performance, had 7 assists, 2 tackles for loss, and then a sack. So the guy was just a menace, flying all over the field, getting into the backfield, hitting the quarterback, doing what he needs to do to create pressure on UMass and make their quarterback uncomfortable. It's exactly what he did. It's exactly how Miami won this game. So those 2 performances are the X factor as to why Miami won. So Gage Larvadain, Matthew Salopek as your offensive and defensive players of the week for the MAC, and a good quality win out of Miami, as a result of those performances. Heading over to Mountain West here, we got a few wins to talk about. San Jose State with a blowout against Cal Poly. Wyoming with a fairly close one against Portland State. Air Force, small win against Sam Houston. I don't know if Sam Houston just can't score. I don't know if their defense is good. Sam Houston lost 14-0 and then 13-3. I have no idea what to think of them. I don't know what this says about Air Force, but we're going to find out. New Mexico blowing out Tennessee Tech. Utah State blowing out Idaho State. And then Fresno State in a close one against Eastern Washington. And Hawaii in a close one against Albany. On offense, I'm actually not going to give it to someone on Air Force just because they only put up 13 points. They didn't do anything really spectacular or amazing. So I will go to that New Mexico win against Tennessee Tech. And I'm going to give it to the running game. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt with 162 yards rushing and three touchdowns. that alone wins you the game. If they don't put up another yard on offense, they win. That's a pretty big performance if you can get that out of your running back. So I know it's just Tennessee Tech. I know it's not I know it's not Ohio State. I know it's not Georgia, but it's the type of decisive win you want to see if you are New Mexico, especially with New Mexico State being the game that you're heading into. So good to see that type of running back performance out of Krosky Merritt and establishing himself as the number one guy for New Mexico. On defense, I will go back to that Air Force game. And when you only give up 3 points against an FBS squad, I'm going to give you your flowers, and that'd be for Bo Richer on Air Force, a 2-tackle performance. But on top of that, he also had 2 sacks. So really putting the pressure on the QB, playing aggressive, playing with intent and with purpose. And when you only win by 10 and it's not an offensive explosion, a performance like that goes a long way in making this happen. So got to give it up for Bo Richer on Air Force defense, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt on New Mexico offense for being the Mountain West Players of the Week. Next up, we're going to move over to the Pac-12 here. USC just beating the brakes off of Stanford. That is a big win. Wow. Washington taking care of business against Tulsa. Utah winning a game they probably didn't deserve to win, but a game that they did win. They were down the majority of it, but they came out at the last second, beat Baylor, and you go back to Salt Lake 2-0. Oregon with a close win against Texas Tech. Oregon State blowing out UC Davis. Washington State shocking the world, beating Wisconsin. They are now a ranked squad in the AP. Got to give it up for Washington State. Especially being one of the 2 leftovers without a conference. They're playing with intent and with purpose this year. So hats off to you, Washington State. Colorado starting off 2-0 with a big win over Nebraska. And then UCLA taking care of business against San Diego State. On offense, I want to give it up. We'll go to Colorado. We'll give it to one of the prime guys. I'll give it up to Xavier Weaver. A 10-catch, 170-yard performance with a touchdown. I mean, Colorado had no problem with Nebraska. They really have established themselves as a force out there. So, and a performance like that from Xavier Weaver shows us that, Colorado is ready to make those steps. They have the guys in place. I'm buying in. And they're going to win this week against Colorado State. But afterwards, when you get into the thick of their Pac-12 schedule, I think they got Oregon the week after. That'll be a fun one. That's what I want to see what this Colorado team can do. But Xavier Weaver being the guy on offense, a 10-catch, 170-yard performance with the touchdown. And, again, just being one of those X factors that Colorado has piled together through whatever means necessary. And, again, this is the most excited fans and media has been around Colorado in, at least a decade. That 2016 team was good, but they weren't polarizing like this. So let's see what Colorado can do for the future, but got to give it up for Weaver for right now. On defense, I want to go to that Oregon win against Texas Tech. I want to give it up to Jeffrey Bossa. An 8-tackle performance, a tackle for loss. Most importantly, a pick 6 on the final drive. They were only up by 1. Texas Tech only needed to score 3. Bossa said, "Nope, I'm taking it to the house and I'm going to seal the deal." That's the dominant win or the dominant type of performance Oregon's going to need all year. It's a defense that's clicking, it's an offense that's clicking, and Bossa is one of those reasons why Oregon is going to continue to trend upwards this year. So Jeffrey Bossa on defense, Xavier Worthy on offense as our Pac-12 Players of the Week. Moving on to the SEC here. Just make sure. Okay. Georgia beating the brakes off Ball State. Tennessee with a fairly small win against Austin Peay. Again, win's a win. LSU beating the brakes off Grambling. Ole Miss, taking Tulane to task. I know they didn't have, Tyler Pratt there, but, again, it's a ranked win for Ole Miss. It's what they needed, and, it's all up from here. Kentucky struggling against Eastern Kentucky, that's not necessarily a good sign of things to come. Arkansas, at least in my eyes, getting by Kent State. Same with Missouri about Middle Tennessee. Not seeing a whole lot of confidence in those types of performances right now. Florida taking care of business against McNeese. Mississippi State taking out Arizona in a close one. South Carolina, taking care of Furman. And then Auburn beating Cal in a close one late night. So on the offense, player of the week, I want to go to that Mississippi win against Arizona. Jaquavius Marks, 123 yards rushing and a touchdown, 4 catches for 32 yards. The type of performance you need to see from your running back. I said that Marks going into this year would be one of, if not the best running back in the SEC, and this is a big reason why. Having that type of performance, having that type of ability to make plays against a Power 5 squad, that's huge. So knowing that and understanding that, gotta be on the lookout for Mississippi State, especially when they have LSU this week. Another challenge for them, and if Mark shows up to that type of performance again, they're gonna make it close for LSU. So Jaquavius Marks, congratulations for being the SEC Offensive Player of the Week. On defense, I want to go to that Auburn-Cal game where we'll give it up to Eugene Asante, a 10-tackle performance, 1.5 tackles for loss, a sack, and a pass defended. Just, again, being the threat of a linebacker that he can be. Hitting the quarterback, playing in the secondary, doing what he needs to do, just fly all over the field for this Auburn team. They did win a close one. There's some concerns with this team, but I ultimately think Cal is an underrated squad. I said it last week. I'll say it this week that Auburn's small win here is not cause for alarms. So if you're an Auburn fan, you're freaking out and you're thinking, oh my God, the world is over. Give it time. It's not that bad, I promise you. So Eugene Asante on defense for Auburn, Jaquavius Marks on offense for Mississippi State. You are the SEC Offensive and Defensive Players of the Week. Next up, we'll give it to the Sun Belt. James Madison eking out a win against Virginia, making a big comeback there. Marshall with a big win, or not big, medium-sized win against East Carolina. South Alabama taking care of business against Southeast Louisiana. Georgia Southern, getting a fairly good win against UAB. Old Dominion sneaking one out against Louisiana. Coastal Carolina in a fairly close win against Jacksonville State. Georgia State coming out ahead against UConn, taking care of business there. And UO Monroe in a close one against Lamar. So on offense and defense, I want to go to that James Madison game. When you are a Group of 5 squad beating a Power 5 squad, I got to give it up to you. I know Virginia is one of the worst Power 5 squads out there right now, but a win is a win. So got to give it up for James Madison. And the players I want to single out are Tyson Lawton, so running back, 79 yards rushing and a 2-touchdown performance. That is the game changing there. That's the difference between a win or a loss. And then on defense, more or less special teams if you really analyze it. D'Angelo Pons, who blocks a punt, returns it for a TD. That's a game changing moment as well. So you take those two players out of the equation, James Madison doesn't win. Just straight up. They don't win without that type of performance from those guys. So if you're James Madison, you got to be happy with what they bring to the table. So congratulations to Tyson Lawton, D'Angelo Pons for being the Sun Belt Offensive and Defensive Players of the Week. Now we'll do my top 25 rankings. Now that we finished off the conference reviews there. So kicking us off at 25. I'm gonna throw Louisville in there. I'm right on that edge of like where I have them, but I think this is a good-looking Louisville squad. Don't sleep on them yet. They are they got a lot to prove still to come. But right now, I got them right on that 25 spot. There's a lot of good, talented teams behind them, but Louisville has shown me they have the pieces that they need to be a ranked squad and maybe make some noise in the ACC this year. 24, I'm going to go North Carolina, dropping them a few spots from last week. I think I had them 19 last week. They're at 24 now. That's what happens when you lose a close one, or when you win a close one against a Group of 5 squad. I didn't see I didn't see the type of performance that they had against South Carolina the week prior. If I had seen that, it wouldn't have been close against App State. They would have remained probably around that 15-20 mark. But for right now, I'm going to punish them a little bit for losing. But when you got Minnesota at home this week, you can get back in some good graces, mine included. 23, I'm going to throw Auburn in there. So this is actually a little bit of a step back. I had Auburn at 20 last week. 23 feels like a good spot for them right now. We'll see with what they've got coming up. I know they got Texas A&M in a few weeks. They got Georgia coming up. Like, they have some real challenges in the future. That as the thick of that SEC schedule comes together. But so far, I like what I'm seeing from Auburn. I think the defense is there. I think the offense has moments. This is a fairly complete Auburn team, and I'm very interested to see how it comes together. 22, I'm going to do Cincinnati. So when you beat Pitt, when you beat a Power 5 school on the road, I take a moment to give you attention. And right now, I mean, they got better records than they got a better resume than a team like Iowa. They got a better resume than a team like Clemson or Texas A&M. So let's throw them in the mix. I think this is a talented Cincinnati team. I think they're looking good right now. And at this current time, I'm comfortable putting them at 22, knowing that it's early in the season and this can all fluctuate. 21, I'm going to put LSU. So in this case, they do move up a couple of spots after a beatdown win against Grambling. It's still a very talented LSU squad. I just want to see what they do against high-level competition. If they lose against Mississippi State, they'll be off. I'm not putting them in. If they're 1-2, they're out of these top 25 rankings. I don't think that's controversial. But if they win and they win convincingly, maybe they move up a few. Maybe I'll put them above an undefeated team just because their one loss is very good. 20, I'm going to go UCF. I think this actually moves them down a couple of spots from 17 last week. So, again, we're just trying to get a feel for what these teams really are right now. I do think it's a good UCF squad. I think when the Big 12 starts their conference play, we'll see what this UCF team is really like. But right now, they haven't given me anything to really doubt on. I like what I'm seeing from this UCF team, and if they can keep it up, they can make a splash in year one now. 19, I'm going to go Tennessee, so a team that a lot of teams are high on. I dropped Tennessee down from 12 to 19, and again, when you play an FCS squad close, I'm not going to reward you for it. I'm not going to move you up. I mean, right now there are other schools ahead of you that have looked better against better competition. Tennessee is a very talented roster. They're a very well-coached roster, but they haven't done anything so far for me to warrant them a top 10 or a top 15 spot. They can this week with a win in Gainesville, but right now I haven't seen it, and I'll believe it when I see it, and I'll rank them appropriately when I do. 18, I'm going to go with Kansas State. I think that where did I have them? I had them at 24 last week, so moving them up to 18. Again, like, they're just blowing. They're blowing out their early season opponents. They do have Mizzou this week, which is getting its own video. So I think it's going to be the first real challenge that Kansas State faces, and from there, kind of get an idea of what this team's identity is long term. Will Howard is playing phenomenally right now. At least in my eyes, he's an early season Heisman contender, and I know it's super early, but keep an eye on that kid. Keep an eye on him, see what he can do, and we can put it together. 17, I'm going to go Syracuse. So this actually, I moved them up from what? I didn't have them ranked last week. I had them just outside. So a new addition to the top 25, the Syracuse Orange. They're beating the brakes off everybody. Think of it this way. I know that they played Colgate in Western Michigan, but think about it this way. They have the number 3 highest scoring offense in all of college football. That's really, really good. They have the number 1 least scored on defense in all of college football. That's really, really good too. So the way I've seen it, from a statistical standpoint, they've been a top 3 team in the country. I take into account the level of competition they've played. I've taken into account the experience and talent on this team, but they do deserve to be ranked just by virtue of how dominant they've looked. If they can continue to look dominant, they'll be getting ranked by the AP soon enough. They do have their first challenge this week in Purdue, but honestly speaking, I think it's not going to be much of a challenge for them. 16, I'm going to go with Oregon State. I had them last week at 22, moving them up to 16. I think this is a team destined for greatness. In my preseason preview, I had Oregon State as a top 10 team going to the Pac-12 championship. They've demonstrated so far that they're going to be in the hunt. They're going to be in it. Whether or not they win, TBD. I didn't have them winning it. I had them losing to USC, which is looking pretty smart right now. But it's a good-looking Oregon State team so far. The offense is clicking. The defense is there. If they can do it against good competition as the Pac-12 season opens up, they're gonna be a problem. 15, I'm going to do Utah. So moving them from 14 to 15 week over week. And yeah, not much of a fallout from a tight win against Baylor. Still 2-0, still 2 Power 5 wins early on in the season. I think they have like Southern Utah or an FCS school, Weber State, like this week upcoming. I'm sure when they beat them by 40 or 50, will kind of pad their stats a little bit like a lot of these other schools are had. Not worried about Utah. I think they're a very talented roster. They're very well coached. And, they got the hard part of their out-of-conference out of the way. They get more or less a bye week this week as they gear up for week 4 and beyond. 14, I'm going to go Miami. Now, I already had Miami ranked. I had Miami at 18, so this is not much of a course correction. I already had Miami ranked. I'm going to rank them higher after a big win at home. This Miami team's looking good. They got the QB play. They got the defense. It's all kind of coming together for Miami right now. And trust me, I don't like it. I don't like it. Go Gators. But, I got to give credit where it's due. If they slip up and they lose to a bad ACC school in October, then the rankings will reflect that. But right now, they have a ranked win by virtue of when Texas A&M was ranked. There's not going to be too many teams ahead of them that have that. So I think Miami deserves that 14 spot until proven otherwise. 13, I'm going to go Washington. So Washington, I had at 15 last week. We're at 13 this week. So moving up, that offense is just clicking. It's going to be hard to beat them. I promise you that. This is a uber talented Washington team. Michael Penix is a clear front runner or a clear contender for the Heisman. I do think they have a challenge this week at Michigan State. Keep an eye on that team. I know they have internal issues right now. I'm not going to comment on that for sake of just not wanting to get involved in it, but I do think this is Washington's first real challenge, and it's on the road. So it's a real barometer of what this Washington team will be for the rest of this year. If they can go into East Lansing and just knock the chocolate out of Michigan State, then they're gonna be in a good spot for the rest of the year. 12, I've got Ole Miss. I had Ole Miss at 13 last week, so a 1-spot jump. That's a good win against Tulane. So if they can continue to do that, they got Alabama, not this week but next week, and I think that's the fun one. If they can get that moving along and they can get that going, then this Ole Miss team is going to be cooking with gas. I really think they can make a splash, especially if they head into that game undefeated. The pressure's going to be on. Bama's going to be kind of with their back against the wall. And, maybe Ole Miss shocks the world. But we'll talk about that next week. 11, I got Alabama. So the issues of, when you lose to Texas at home, you fall outside the top 10. I don't think that's a criminal underranking. I think that's right around where they are right now with a 1-1 record, and that one win being Middle Tennessee. Do I think this team can still make the playoffs? Do I think they can still win the SEC? Do I think they can still win a Natty? Yes, yes, yes. Are they going to have the work cut out for them? Also, yes. So when that comes together and, as we see the SEC schedule come through Bryant-Denny, and as they go on the road to places like College Station, are they going to rise to the occasion for it? Time will tell. But I'm going to put Alabama at 11. I'm going to put Oregon at 10. I had Oregon at 11 last week, so I think this is a fair spot to put them. The offense is just clicking. They got a good win on the road against a Power 5 squad. The defense bailed them out. They have all the elements of a complete top 10 team right now. There's not too many teams ahead of them that also have that, so it's all just kind of that. The team you have at 10 could also be the team you have at 7. Like, in my eyes, they're all kind of interchangeable at this point. But Oregon right now is looking tough. Right now, they're one of the few squads that can challenge SC for the Pac-12 championship. And it's the year of the quarterback in the Pac-12. They have that, but I think Oregon also having a defense, while a team like USC doesn't, that may be the decision long term. But I'm gonna put Oregon at 10 for right now. 9, I'm going to put Michigan. Michigan has not looked super impressive so far. As far as I'm concerned, they did all right against ECU. They did all right against UNLV. They're going to do all right this week against Bowling Green probably. They're going to do all right the next week against Rutgers. I don't know what to make of this team. I don't know if it's because Harbaugh's out, but I'm not going to put them in my top 4 just because they're Michigan. I'm not going to put them, I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to just, rank based on name alone. I want to see them back it up. Until that happens, we'll kind of fluctuate them, throw them around in this general top 10 spot. 8, I'm going to go Notre Dame, 3-0. Central Michigan will make it 4-0, and then you got Ohio State at home. Big opportunity. Right now, if we're looking at that game, I think Notre Dame could really win. Notre Dame has shown so far that they're ready for the big time. I know this Ohio State team is super talented, but I'm looking at Notre Dame squad. They're also super talented. They have the O-line, they have the defense, they have the run game, they have the QB. They have the pieces in place to make a serious run for a national championship. I'm going to put Notre Dame at 8 for right now, a quarter of the season gone, and I'm very curious to see what they do with the remaining 9. 7, I'm going to go Oklahoma. I know they struggled with SMU this past week, but they really do have the power, the firepower. So just to clarify, Michigan I had down 9 from 7. Notre Dame I had down 6 from 8. Oklahoma I had down 4 now to 7. So it's all kind of course correcting, all kind of working itself out. But it's a very talented Oklahoma team. They have the defense. I think Dylan Gabriel is an excellent quarterback. I just want to see them against a really good competition. And Tulsa's not going to do it for them this week. They have Cincinnati in week 4. That might be their first piece of competition. But if Tulsa's 3-0 going into that game, or if Oklahoma's 3-0 going into that game, then I think they should be in a position to control their own fate in the Big 12 and really make a splash before they head over to the SEC. Number 6, I've got Penn State. Now, I got Penn State moving up from 10, so just outside the top 5. Drew Aller is the dude. They still got their defense. They still got their run game. It's a talented Penn State squad. And remember, in my preseason prediction, I did have them going to the Big Ten championship game. I also had them playing Wisconsin, who, let's be honest, is probably not going to be there. But I think in the thick of it, it's a Big Ten that's going to cannibalize itself this year. Penn State's talented, Michigan's talented, Ohio State's talented. Right now, Penn State is more talented than Michigan. I don't have them as good as Ohio State, but they're going to be down to it. They're going to be playing them hard. I guarantee you that much. Heading into the top 5. We're going to go with the team with the best win in college football right now. We're going to go with old Texas Longhorns. I have them moving up from 9 to 5. And when you go into Bryant-Denny and you beat Alabama and you do it convincingly, you are a top 5 team. You can make an argument this is a number 1 team. I'm going to leave them at 5 for now. I want to see what they've got for the rest of the year. But this Texas team is for real. And, I think I slept on them heading into the season. And I'm looking a little foolish right now, but this Texas team is looking real nice as we head into week 3. And as long as they don't pull a Texas Tech and lose to Wyoming this week, they're going to be 3-0. Number 4, this one hurts. I'm going to go with Florida State, up 8 from 8 to 4. I'm buying into them. As much as this sucks, as much as I hate it, I mean, they have the second best win in college football, that neutral site win against LSU. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a good looking FSU squad. I don't remember. Oh no, they have Boston College this week, so 3-0. Okay, that's nothing. I assume they'll just beat the brakes off Boston College this week, head into Clemson week, ready to go. And with Clemson looking the way that they're looking, FSU could very likely go 12-0 at this point. Who's going to stop them? They don't have Notre Dame. The rest of the ACC, I mean, what, is Miami going to do it? I don't know what it looks like right now. I don't think they have Syracuse. They may have Syracuse on the schedule. But UNC, I think FSU is just head and shoulders above the rest of the conference right now. And it sucks, but, I mean, credit to where it's due. They're one of the most experienced teams in the country right now. They're playing on all cylinders, and they have a very legitimate shot at making the playoffs. Number 3, I'm going to go USC. USC up from I had them at 5 last week. I'm at 3 this week. Again, Caleb Williams right now is my Heisman front runner. The defense looked good against Stanford, but I mean, again, it's a Stanford team that you're supposed to beat by as much as you did. So again, very interested to see what this team's going to look like long term. Interested to see what they do against the rest of the Pac-12. Interested to see what they do against Notre Dame. Those are the type of games that are going to define the season for USC this year. I don't know what those games are going to look like, but they're going to be interesting to watch. USC is clearly on another level right now with Lincoln Riley kind of coming in and infusing his culture and his level of expectations over there at USC. Number 2, I've got Georgia. Georgia, actually, in my eyes, up from 3 to 2 this week. The perks of Bama losing. Georgia's not going to play anyone of value until, I mean, that's the fun part. Who's their opponent of value? Is it Auburn? Is it Florida? Is it Tennessee? Who's it going to be? Because right now, no one's looking good. So Georgia is going to have a cakewalk to the SEC championship game. Throwing them at 2, very well could put them at 1 as kind of the champs until you take it away mentality. But I think Georgia's going to be at 2 for right now. They haven't looked like super dominant against anyone they've played, but I think they're also taking their foot off the gas a little bit. We'll see what it looks like long term. But for right now, I'll put Georgia at 2, and I'll keep Ohio State at 1. I have them moving up to 1 from 2 last week. This is where I'm kind of being a little bit of a hypocrite, where it's I moved Michigan down, but I'm not moving Ohio State. I think Ohio State is more talented, more to put together, everything along those lines. I'm going to keep them at 1 for the time being. I can be swayed, I can be persuaded, but I will keep Ohio State at number 1 until proven otherwise, or until I see something with one of these other teams to jump them, until I see Ohio State really just have a bad game against a bad team, or a team that they should be dominating. When those things happen, I'll drop Ohio State from 1. I'll gentleman's agreement. But other than that, I'm good with keeping them at 1. I think when it's all said and done, they're the most talented roster and the most talented team in the country until proven otherwise. So that is my top 25 heading into week 3. So let's head into week 3 coverage. Let's head into the games that will be taken out this week. So starting off with Navy at Memphis. And if you haven't watched these videos before, I'm just going to go game by game, win prediction, score prediction, over under, all that fun stuff. So Memphis is the favorite. They're favored by 14 points, and the total is 47. I'm picking Memphis to win. I'm picking Memphis to cover, and I'm actually going to hit the under on 47. So this is not a good Navy team. I think this is a pretty dominant Memphis team. So I'm going to go Memphis 34, Navy 11. At least that's what the model I've made up has me picking. So a pretty easy win for Memphis to just coast to as we open up the Week 3 slate of games on Thursday. We're on Friday now. Virginia at Maryland. Maryland is the favorite. They are favored by 14, and the total is 49. I'm going to take Maryland to win. I'm going to take Maryland to cover, and I'm going to take the over on 49. This Virginia team is not good. It's rough. I'm going to say Maryland puts up 40. Virginia will say 19. So a 21-point win for Maryland. So I mean 40-19 is what? That's still how much is that? Is that 51 or 59? Something like that. So still a pretty clear over for the 49 there. So just looking at it that way, I think this is going to be a clear win for Maryland here. Actually, give me 1 second. All right. All right, so we got Army at UTSA then. UTSA is the favorite. They are favored by 9, and the total is 45.5. I'm going to take UTSA to win. I'm going to take UTSA to cover, and I'm going to take the under on 45.5. And I'm really liking the under there, first and foremost. So, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know what this, this Army team or this UTSA team really are at this point. So Army hasn't really impressed me so far, losing to ULM and then blowing out Delaware State. UTSA kept it close with Houston and then kept it close with Texas State. I don't know what either of these teams really end up becoming, so I'm leaning towards the under on 45.5 just because the offenses haven't shown up yet. I'm going to say UTSA 25, Army 13. So low-scoring affair early on in the week. Next up, we'll do Utah State at Air Force. So Air Force is the favorite. They're favored by 9, and the total is 46.5. I'm going to do Air Force wins, but I'm actually going to pick Utah State to cover. Utah State has not looked that bad so far this year. They kept it close with Iowa, and then took care of business this week. Air Force kind of doing the same, and then I'll take the over on 46.5. I think this ends up being closer than people imagine. I'm going to say Air Force 28, Utah State, 26? Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, so it's a 54-point, yes. So I'll do Air Force 28, Utah State 26 based on my modeling. So shouldn't be a problem with hitting the over on 46.5. Ends up being a closer one than what Air Force wants, but still a pretty decisive win for, or a pretty smooth win for Air Force when it's all said and done. Next up is Florida State at Boston College. Florida State is the favorite, obviously. They are favored by 27.5, and the total is 53.5. I'm going to take Florida State to win, obviously. I'm going to take Boston College to cover, but I'm going to hit the over on 53.5. I'm going to say Florida State 42, Boston College 23. So that's what I think it ends up being here, is ultimately a closer one than Florida State wants to make it happen. I think the noon kickoff up in Boston, the travel, I think maybe they sleepwalk through the first quarter and a half, Florida State does, and then they kick it into overdrive for the rest of the game. That's how I see it happen. I don't know how you get 23, maybe a missed extra point or something, I don't know. But I still think FSU wins comfortably against a Power 5 or a conference opponent, starts off the conference year 1-0, and eyes looks ahead to what Clemson's doing. Next up is Penn State at Illinois. Penn State is the favorite. They're favored by 14, and the total is 48.5. I'm going to take Penn State to win. I'm going to pick Penn State to cover, and I'm going to take the over on 48.5. And that's the game that that's the total that I actually am leaning on as a whole. I'm going to say Penn State 41, Illinois 19. So that's a 60-point game. So well above that 48.5. I think the offenses come alive for Penn State, I think Illinois struggles a little bit, but does find a way to put up some points. But it's really going to be on the Penn State offense to just carry this over more or less on their own. So I'm gonna give it to Penn State, but really like the over on 48.5. I'm gonna skip LSU Mississippi State. That will be a video for later in the week. I'm going to skip Kansas State Missouri. That is a video for later in the week. So next up is Liberty at Buffalo. Liberty is the favorite. They are favored by 4 points, and the total is 56.5. I am taking Liberty to win. I am taking Liberty to cover, and I'm taking the over on 56.5. I'm going to say Liberty 36, Buffalo 23. So a 2-score win for Liberty. I think they've been, they've looked really good so far this year. Buffalo has not. So Liberty coming together in that type of way is not going to be a surprise for anyone, at least in my eyes. So I think Liberty takes care of business on the road against a group of 5 squad there. Next up is Louisville at Indiana. I believe this is a neutral site game. Louisville is the favorite. They're favored by 9.5 points, and the total is 53.5. I will take Louisville to win. I will take Louisville to cover, and I'll take the under on 53.5. I'm going to say Louisville 31, Indiana 20, so it does end up being probably a little closer than what Louisville likes, but still on the positive side of the spread. I like the under on 53.5 more because that's what 31 to 20 is 51. So right around that 2.5 mark, and yeah, I mean I think it's a good mark to meet. Hit that under. I don't think the offenses are that prolific, especially on Indiana. So I think if that's the case, maybe it's a little bit more ground focused, runs out the clock, and the under hits. Next up is Georgia Southern at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is the favorite. They're favored by 19.5, and the total is 63. I'm going to take Wisconsin to win. I will take Georgia Southern to cover, and I'll take the under on 63. Georgia Southern has looked good so far this year. Wisconsin really hasn't. So I'm going to take Wisconsin 33, Georgia Southern 22. Ends up being closer. I don't think Wisconsin has really found their identity as a team yet. It's a pretty big culture shift. It's one I thought they'd be able to grasp a little quicker, but ultimately they're just not at that level yet. I think they struggle at home against Georgia Southern. All the questions will be raised, but they will be answered in the future with a good win against another team that they probably shouldn't beat. I don't know who that team's going to be yet, but maybe it's Ohio State. Maybe that's the fun one of the day. But I'm going to take Wisconsin in a closer or close-ish one. Yeah, that's a 11-point game. So I'll take Georgia Southern to cover. That's the big one. Wake Forest at Old Dominion. Wake Forest is the favorite. They are favored by 14 points, and the total is 61.5. I will take Wake Forest to win. I will take Wake Forest to cover, and I will take the over on 61.5. I don't think this is going to be particularly close. The model I have has Wake Forest dominating. It says they're going to put up 52 points, 52-16. I think that's a big of a stretch, but the point stands it's going to be a lot more than the minus 14 that they're currently given. So take Wake Forest, take them big, and ultimately I don't expect a whole lot out of Old Dominion this game. I think Wake Forest handles business. Road, home, or on the moon, I think they'll take care of it. So I'll take Wake Forest, and I'll take them big there. Iowa State at Ohio. So Iowa State is the favorite. They're favored by 2.5, and the total is 45. I will take Iowa State to win. I'll take Iowa State to cover, and I'll take the under on 45. And I really like the Iowa State beating the spread. I'm going to say Iowa State 24, Ohio 12. That's the modeling that I have, but I think the point kind of stands. It's going to be lower scoring. It's going to be a little bit more of an emphasis on those defenses and the run games. And Iowa State is going to win, but it's not going to be by 3 scores or anything major. So they'll win fairly comfortably, but it's going to be on the low scoring side. Next up is UMass at Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan is the favorite. They are favored by 9.5, and the total is 52.5. I'm taking Eastern Michigan to win. I'm taking UMass to cover, and then I'll take the over on 52.5, and that's the one that I like a lot more. So in my eyes, that's going to be Eastern Michigan 31, UMass 26. So that's a 57-point total. So above that 52.5. Again, I think the offense is just generating a little bit more, a little bit more scoring this time around, and just edges them right above that 52.5 mark. Next up is Central Michigan at Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is the favorite, obviously. They're favored by 34, and the total is 55.5. I'm taking Notre Dame to win, obviously. I'm taking Notre Dame to cover, and I'm taking the over on 55.5. And I really like the over on 55.5 more than anything. The model that I have, so brace yourselves for this one, Notre Dame 60, Central Michigan 12. So I think the offense has come alive. Do I think Notre Dame is going to put up 60 points on their own? Probably not, because they didn't do that against Tennessee State. They put up, 56? So it's probably going to be somewhere between the Navy numbers and the Tennessee State numbers. Probably somewhere in that range, but it's not going to be close. Notre Dame's going to knock them out and head into Ohio State week 4-0. Next up is South Carolina at Georgia, where Georgia is the favorite, obviously. They are favored by 27.5, and the total is 55. I'm going to take Georgia to win, obviously. I will take South Carolina to cover, and I will take the over on 55. I'm going to say Georgia 38, South Carolina 19. I think South Carolina puts up a little bit of a challenge. Georgia hasn't seen really anyone of value so far this season. And South Carolina, while not world beaters, are better than Ball State and UT Martin. So when I look at it through that lens, South Carolina presents a problem for Georgia, but not enough that they can't win by multiple scores. So that's not going to be an issue. But so I'll take Georgia to win comfortably, but I'll take South Carolina to cover the spread. Next up is Alabama at South Florida, so taking the trip to Tampa. Alabama is the favorite, obviously. They are favored by 32, and the total is 61.5. I'm going to take Alabama to win, obviously. I will take Alabama to cover, and I will take the over on 61.5. I think Alabama comes out with revenge on their mind. I feel bad for South Florida. They're going to get the shit beat out of them. There's no way around it. Alabama is going to put up, in my model, 53-18. And I'm sure they're not going to be thrilled with 18, being scored on them. But I think the offense are going to come out the same way that they did against Middle Tennessee. South Florida is roughly the same level as Middle Tennessee, so nothing special to begin with. And Bama just, they exercise all of their demons out and just be like, all right, we feel good. All right, now it's on for Ole Miss. Do it to them too. But I think South Florida poses no challenge to Alabama, especially with them covering the 32. But I really like this over on the 61.5. When it's 53-18, that's a 71-point total. I like that a lot more. Next up is San Diego State at Oregon State. San Diego State is the favorite. They are favored by 24.5 points, and the total is 47.5. I'll take Oregon State to win. I will take Oregon State to cover, and I will take I'll take the over on 47.5. Based on my actual picks, it's identical, the number between the two. So 24.5, 47.5. The bets themselves are identical for me. If you want to take Oregon State to cover, I'm good with that. If you want to take them to cover the spread, I'm good with that as well. I think they're a 50-50 chance of equal chance of happening either way. So based on my modeling, I've got Oregon State 50, San Diego State 12, so 62 points, and a pretty decisive win for Oregon State like they've done so far all year, and they start off the year 3-0. Next up is Oklahoma at Tulsa. Oklahoma is the favorite. They are favored by 27 points, and the total is 60. I think Oklahoma wins. I got them covering the 27-point spread, and I'll go just under on the 60 here. So I'm going to say Oklahoma 50, Tulsa 9, so that could be 49-10. The model just kind of plays around with the numbers and all that. But Oklahoma, I think, is going to have no problem with Tulsa, and it is on the road, which I think is funny. But I think Tulsa Tulsa is not ready for Oklahoma or anything they're gonna throw at them. So I think Oklahoma wins. They win big. They're 3-0 heading into that Cincy game, and that's where the real season starts. But another kind of breeze for Oklahoma this year, and just don't slip up. That's the move. Just full steam ahead, do your thing, and get ready for the next opponent on your paper. I'm going to skip the Minnesota-North Carolina game. I'm going to give them their own video for this week. So next up is Northwestern at Duke. Duke is the favorite. They are favored by 18.5, and the total is 46.5. I will take Duke to win. I'll take Northwestern to cover, and I will take the under on 46.5. Northwestern is still a team that I think is a little bipolar. I'm not 100% on the Duke squad yet. I don't have them in my top 25. I have them like right on the outside looking in. But if Duke just comes out here and demolishes Northwestern, there's a very legitimate chance I'll throw them in the top 25 next week. But right now I've got Duke 25, Northwestern 15. So a 10-point win, a little bit under what was being expected. Under on the 46.5, and ultimately I think Northwestern covers. I think they kind of show up this game now that they got that one win on their system. They kind of know what they're about, and maybe they kind of bring some of what worked against UTEP out against Duke. So next up is Western Michigan at Iowa. I'm going to take. Iowa is the favorite. They are favored by 28.5, and the total is 53. I'll take Iowa to win. I will take Iowa to cover, and I will take the over on 43.5. So the model I have has Iowa 44, Western Michigan 12. Now that is a beast of a line. If Iowa gets 44, that basically saves Brian Ferentz's job. But I'm going to say Iowa winning big and hitting the over on 43. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not going to be any challenge for Iowa. It's really just going to be a matter of how much they score and how much they win by. And in this case, having 43 is a nice little line if you want to hit the over. I think they'll have no problem hitting it. Next up is Virginia Tech at Rutgers. Rutgers is the favorite. They are favored by 7, and the total is 39.5. I'm taking Rutgers to win. I'm taking Rutgers to cover, and I'm taking the over on 39.5. The model I have right now says Rutgers 25, Virginia Tech 17. So a fairly close one, but one that they take care of with little resistance. I like the over on 39.5 more, so just over into that 42-point range. So that's the way I'm looking at it. I think we're still figuring both these teams out. But if Rutgers is 3-0, I don't think they're going to be 4-0 after that Michigan game. But I looked at Rutgers' schedule kind of recently, and they could very well start the season off 6-2. Now, that's a scary thought to think about because I don't think of Rutgers as a football powerhouse. But if they start coming around, I don't know what to do with myself here. But next up is FIU at UConn. UConn is the favorite. They are favored by 8.5, and the total is 42.5. I'm taking UConn to win. I will take FIU to cover, and the total is I'll take the over on the total. So the score prediction I have is UConn 28, FIU 19. So that does end up being a 9-point win, but due to the rounding errors and everything that I've got, it actually ends up being like 0.05 under 8.5. So, I can't do a whole lot with it, but I think, UConn still wins by about 7 to 10 points. I like the over on 42.5 more than that. So I think the offense has come out a little bit more. The defense has stayed home a bit, and UConn takes home a win. Next up is East Carolina at next up is East Carolina at App State. So in this case, App State is the favorite. They are favored by 9.5 points, and the total is 50.5. I'm going to take Appalachian State to win. I'm taking Appalachian State to cover, and I am taking the over on 50.5. Final score prediction is going to be App State 35, East Carolina 20. So a 15-point win for Appalachian State. Hits that 9.5 line mark, and Appalachian State bounces back from an overtime loss with a good win with an in-state opponent there. Next up is Western Kentucky at Ohio State. Ohio State is the favorite. They are favored by 27.5, and the total is 64. I'm picking Ohio State to win, obviously. I'm going to take Western Kentucky to cover, and I'm taking the under on 64. So the score I've got is Ohio State 38, Western Kentucky 14, and that runs along basically what we've seen so far from Ohio State this year. And it's a fact that this is a Western Kentucky team that, at least in my eyes, is a step up from who they played last week. It may be a step up from Indiana, when it's all said and done. And it's a team that has a prolific passing attack. It's one of the best creators of air raid quarterbacks in the country. And if Ohio State's not ready, they're not going to cover. I do think the defenses show up specifically for Ohio State and does limit a lot of that opportunity for Western Kentucky. But with that in mind, I don't think Ohio State comes out and beats them by 40 or 50 or anything ridiculous. Next up is UL Monroe at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is the favorite. They are favored by 37 points, and the total is 53. I'm taking Texas A&M to win. I'm taking UL Monroe to cover, and I'm taking the over on 53. I don't know how Texas A&M gets a 37-point spread a week after losing to Miami. You got to give them a confidence boost and give that thing down to 28. I think even that's too much. I'm saying Texas A&M 35, UL Monroe 20. I have not UL Monroe has looked decent so far this year, specifically the defense. I have not seen a whole lot of world-beating powers out of Texas A&M right now. So I'm gonna just give them a 15-point win and a close one at home. The fans are still gonna be pissed off that why didn't we win by 50 like we did against New Mexico, and the saga is just gonna repeat itself. And then we'll see what Texas A&M does with their next big matchup and big game of the week. But I don't think this ends up being a blowout like Texas A&M fans are looking for. Next up is Tulane at Southern Miss. Tulane is the favorite. They are favored by 11.5, and the total is 52.5. I'm taking Tulane to win. I'm taking Southern Miss to cover, and I will take the over on 52.5, which is the bet I would be making. So I take Tulane 34, Southern Miss 27. So a close-ish one on the road for Tulane. But I really like the over on 52.5. That's what really drives it and motivates it in my eyes. I think that's the betting piece, if you will. I think the offense has come out. I think Pratt may end up playing this game, and as a result, the offense has become a little bit more alive. Southern Miss does not have that good of a defense, and I think Pratt and this Tulane team kind of expose it. But I still think Southern Miss holds their own in a way where it's not going to be a 2-score, 3-score blowout. Nothing to that degree. I will skip Washington, Michigan State for its own separate video. Let's do Georgia State at Charlotte. So at this point, Georgia State is the favorite. They are favored by 8. The total is 55.5. I'm taking Georgia State to win. I'm taking Charlotte to cover, and I'm taking the under on 55.5, and that's the one that I like more. I'm going to say Georgia State 30. I'm going to say Charlotte 23. So a 7-point win, right around that 8-point mark. And what? That's 30 and 23 is 53, so just a few points under that 55.5. Georgia State has looked good so far this year. I don't think there's any reason they're going to slow up. And they start the season off, I believe, 3-0 with this win. So Georgia State comes out swinging. It's not going to be by a huge margin. It's not going to be a blowout, but a win is a win. I am skipping Tennessee, Florida for its own video. Stay tuned for that one because I may have a special guest on board for that video. Still getting that set up, but we'll see. Next up is North Texas at Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech is the favorite. They are favored by 4.5 points, and the total is 68. I'll take Louisiana Tech to win. I'll take Louisiana Tech to cover, and I'll take the over on 68. I'm going to say Louisiana Tech 41, North Texas 28. So the offenses are well and alive, but this North Texas team is rough, guys. This is a bad-looking North Texas team. And I think Louisiana Tech comes out and brings them into the woodshed. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. 4.5 is very generous from the line that I got. I think Louisiana Tech handles them with no problem. Next up is Northern Illinois at Nebraska. Can Nebraska finally get a win? Nebraska is the favorite. They are favored by 11 points, and the total is 45.5. I am taking Nebraska to win. I am taking Northern Illinois to cover, and I am taking the under on 45.5. I'm going to say Nebraska 25, Northern Illinois 17. Again, I have not seen a whole lot from Nebraska so far, specifically on the offense. I do want to see that cleaned up. And, maybe this is the game where they do it. But until then, I'm really looking at that under on 45.5, just because I haven't seen Nebraska do anything worthwhile, specifically on that offense. The defense looks like they can play a little bit, but I haven't seen the scoring rate that I want to see out of this Nebraska team. Next up is Vanderbilt at UNLV. Vanderbilt is the favorite. They're favored by 4, and the total is 57.5. I'm going to say Vandy wins. Vandy covers and hit the over. I don't think this one's going to be particularly close. I'm going to say Vanderbilt 42, UNLV 19. So just going to be a blowout from start to finish. This Vanderbilt team is not as good as last year's, but they're still leagues better than UNLV. I don't think this is going to be close. This went in Vegas, which is I think kind of interesting. But as far as I'm concerned, this Vanderbilt team is still better than a mid-level Mountain West team. Got to give them a little bit of credit, But next up is Miami, Ohio at Cincinnati. So Cincinnati is the favorite. They're favored by 14.5. The total is 47.5. I'm going to say Cincinnati wins. Cincinnati wins big, and the over on 47.5. The model I've got says Cincinnati 56, Miami 14. The offense this year for Cincinnati has reflected that type of performance. So it very well could happen. Very well could be that this is the case. I think Cincinnati shows up. They blow out Miami, Ohio with little regard and with little resistance. And again, they got their eye on the prize for next week, which is Oklahoma. That's the fun one. That's the one you got to get after. But outside of that, I don't think Cincinnati's going to face much of a problem this week at all. Next up is South Alabama at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is the favorite. They're favored by 7, and the total is 47.5. I'm going to take Oklahoma State to win. I will take Oklahoma State to cover, and I will take the over on 47.5. Right now, I'm looking Oklahoma State 41, South Alabama 14. So quite a bit above that number 7 line. I mean, it's interesting because I haven't seen a lot out of this Oklahoma State team yet. I've seen pieces of what this Alabama team could be. They've been very kind of pedestrian and average. But with that in mind, I think Oklahoma State hasn't had that stat boost game yet as they may have had, like an Oklahoma has or like a Texas has, So in that case, I think South Alabama may end up being that stat boost game, and they blow the doors off of South Alabama up there in Stillwater. Next up is Louisiana at UAB. UAB is the favorite. They are favored by 1.5, and the total is 59.5. I'm going to say UAB wins. I'm going to say Louisiana covers, and the total is I'm going to hit the over on the total. So I think it's a close one. I think it ends up being UAB 31, Louisiana 30. So a scare at home for UAB. So that's why I like the over a little bit more. That 1.5 line is it's too close for comfort. But I think the offenses show up, and UAB comes away with a scare, but a win is a win, and they get ready for what the rest of the season is going to look like. Next up is James Madison at Troy. Troy is the favorite. They're favored by 2 points, and the total is 49.5. I'm taking Troy to win. I'm going to take Troy to cover, and I'm going to hit the over on 49.5. I think it ends up being Troy 37, James Madison 25. So double-digit win for Troy at home. But I really like that over on 49.5. The only defense we've really seen so far has been on the James Madison side. But I think the Troy offense does overpower that James Madison defense this year. And then James Madison's offense is already alive and well. So the two combined are going to excel and soar right past that 49.5. Next up is San Jose State at Toledo. Toledo is the favorite. They are favored by 8.5, and the total is 58.5. I'm taking Toledo to win. I'm taking Toledo to cover, and I'm hitting the over on 48.5. I'm saying Toledo 42, San Jose State 26. Toledo has looked very good so far this season, and especially from an offense point of view, it's one of the most prolific teams in the group of five. I don't see that slowing down against a San Jose State team that has not demonstrated that type of firepower. So Toledo comes out, they win fairly big, and the offenses show up to hit the over. That's the one that I like more than the cover there. So next up, we got Bowling Green at Michigan. Michigan's the favorite. Obviously, they are favored by 40 points, and the total is 51.5. I think Michigan wins. I think Bowling Green covers, and they're going to hit over on the total. Michigan has failed to cover against ECU. They have failed to cover it against UNLV. Why is that going to stop this week when the margin is even greater? Now, I know Bowling Green is a step down from those other two teams. No disrespect to ECU or UNLV. That their talent got them to cover. But Michigan does not show that they are capable of that type of covering. So I'm going to say Michigan 41, which pleases fans. And then I'm going to say Bowling Green 12, which, again, if you are a Michigan fan, that's not terrible. That's a good win early in the year. It's just not going to be by more than 40. That's a ridiculous line after the last two games. So Michigan wins. They win comfortably, but it's not going to be by more than 40. Next up is Georgia Tech at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is the favorite. They are favored by 20 points, and the total is 63. I'm taking Ole Miss to win. I will take Georgia Tech to cover, and that's the bet I'll take, and then I'll take the over on 63. I'm going to say Ole Miss 41. I'm going to say Georgia Tech 27. So a little bit of a scare for Ole Miss, a little bit closer than probably what they would have liked. The Ole Miss offense is rocking and rolling right now. So is Georgia Tech's. Georgia Tech puts up points, so I got to give them credit where it's due. I just want to see what the Ole Miss offense can do against this Georgia Tech defense. That's where I think it'll all be fun for everyone. But right now, Ole Miss will win. It's going to be by about a two-score cover or a two-score margin, and then the over on 63 is nice as well. But I'll take Georgia Tech to cover from a betting perspective. Next up is BYU at Arkansas. Arkansas is the favorite. They are favored by 9.5, and the total is 51.5. I will take Arkansas to win. I will take BYU to cover, and I will take the under on 51.5. Score prediction on my end is Arkansas 25, BYU 19. It's going to be low scoring. I really like that under on 51.5. Haven't seen a whole lot of. There's still so many questions out there for both of these teams. Arkansas struggled this week. BYU hasn't really put up a whole lot of points so far. And, the defenses are there, don't get me wrong. But, how does that compare to offenses that have put up points? I think it ends up kind of evening out and being somewhere in the middle and hitting under on that 51.5. Next up is Akron at Kentucky. Kentucky is the favorite. They are favored by 25 points, and the total is 51. I'm taking Kentucky to win. I am taking Kentucky to cover, and I'm taking the over on 51. Right now, I'm looking at Kentucky 41, Akron 13. So the over on 51 is the one that I like, more than the minus 25. But ultimately, I think Akron poses a little challenge to Kentucky. I think they bounced back from a struggle last week, and they got to gear up for what they've got left. And right now, I mean, they're going to start the year off 4-0 just by virtue of how weak their schedule is. So you put it all together that way, Kentucky is going to be fine heading into the next week. Next up is Syracuse at Purdue. Purdue is the favorite. They are favored by 58.5. Or they're favored by 2.5, and the total is 58.5. I think Syracuse is going to win. I think Syracuse is going to cover, and I'm going to hit the over on 58.5. I think Syracuse is going to blow out Purdue. I think it's honestly speaking, I'm going to say Syracuse 42, Purdue 17. It's not going to be close. This Purdue team this Syracuse team has been demolishing the teams that they've went up against. Purdue is a big jump in talent and in skill compared to Colgate or Western Michigan, but Syracuse played those teams like a top 25 team. I think the Syracuse team is very talented. They're very underrated, and I think they end up winning by far more than 2.5. Next up is Pitt at West Virginia. Pitt is the favorite. They are favored by 1, a measly 1-point favorite, and then the total is 50.5. I'm taking Pitt to win. I'm taking Pitt to cover, and I'm taking the over on 50.5. I'm going to say Pitt 30, West Virginia 26. So from that angle, from that perspective, I think Pitt faces a little bit of a challenge, but I think they bounce back against a rival on the road, and they get ready for for the rest of their season. I think Pitt is a very talented team, a very underrated team, but last week's loss does not bode well for them in terms of building up a resume for the rest of the year. Beating West Virginia on the road will help with that, but I know they got their sights set on the ACC and beyond, and getting that appetizer of a rival on the road is a big plus to your resume there. Next up is Wyoming at Texas. Texas is the favorite. They are favored by 28.5, and the total is 48.5. I'm taking Texas to win. I'm taking Wyoming to cover, and I'm taking the over on 48.5. That's the big one for me. I'm going to say Texas 43, Wyoming 17. So a decisive win for Texas. Like if I read that score to you the next day, you wouldn't be mad just because they didn't hit by 28 or 29. Like they're still going to be fine. It's not the end of the world, and the offenses are going to be there for mainly Texas. Texas's offense is cooking right now, so they're going to continue to cook heading into this game. Next up is Hawaii at Oregon. Oregon is the favorite. They are favored by 37.5, and the total is 68. I'm taking Oregon to win. I'm taking Oregon to cover, and I'm taking the over on 68. So the margin I have by my formula is Oregon 60, Hawaii 16. Now I think those numbers are a little off, but the idea comes to the idea stands that this is going to be a blowout and the offenses will be alive, specifically Oregon's. Hawaii's defense is not good. Oregon flies high and has Bo Nix back there. So as far as I'm concerned, Oregon's going to tear apart Wyoming any way they can, and the offenses are going to be the key factor behind that. Next up is New Mexico State at New Mexico. New Mexico State is the favorite. They are favored by 1, and the total is 51.5. I'm taking New Mexico to win. I think this is it's the only upset I've picked so far. Week 3 is a very heavy favorite week. I swung too far last week the other way, where I picked a bunch, and a few of them hit, don't get me wrong, but I'm going a lot of chalk so far this week. I'm going to take New Mexico 33, New Mexico State 32 in a close one, a statewide rivalry game. I'm feeling New Mexico right now. If it was at New Mexico State, maybe I'd flip it, but having that home crowd advantage is the points that I need to pick New Mexico in a close one there. So 32 or 33-32, so really hits the over as well if you are going to pick New Mexico State. I think the offense will be alive and well. But next up we have FAU at Clemson. So Clemson is the favorite. They are favored by 24.5, and the total is 52.5. I'm taking Clemson to win. I'm taking FAU to cover, and I'm taking the over on 52.5. The model that I've got says Clemson 37, FAU 18. So a decent margin win. Probably not to the degree that Clemson fans are looking for, but the offenses will be more prolific. I think this FAU offense is a pretty underrated. This FAU team is a pretty underrated offense. I know it didn't really show up last week, but it did show up in week 1. So if they can get that consistency out, they may give Clemson some problems. And ultimately, I think they'll do enough to cover against Clemson, even if it's on the road for that FAU squad. Next up is TCU at Houston. TCU is the favorite. They are favored by 7, and the total is 62.5. I'm taking TCU to win, TCU to cover, and the under on 62.5. I'm saying TCU 35, Houston 27, so a close one, but TCU is going to squeak it out. Still trying to figure out the identity of both these squads. Houston coming off a bad loss to Rice, about to be 1-2. TCU with their bad loss in week 1, not looking as bad right now, but looking to rebound for the rest of the year. So I think TCU rebounds with a close win on the road against a conference rival to put a bow on where they're at for the season right now. Next up, we're heading into the night games. We're heading at Colorado State at Colorado, the location of game day this week. The media really loves Dion, so it's Colorado is the favorite. They're favored by 23, and the total is 59. I'm taking Colorado to win, Colorado to cover, and the over on 59. The model I have says this is going to be a blowout. It's going to be 70-20. Now, I don't think Colorado is going to do that. I don't think mathematically it's borderline impossible to get that type of score with the way college football is run these days. But the point stands that this Colorado team is very legit. This Colorado State team is very bad. So you put those two together, I think the overall point is that the 59 is a very low mark to beat, and they'll go out of their way to beat it this year as a Colorado team. Next up is Fresno State at Arizona State. Fresno State is the favorite. That's rough. A Group of 5 school being the favorite over a Power 5 school, but it's well earned. Fresno State is the favorite. They are favored by 3, and the total is 51. I'm taking Fresno State to win, Fresno State to cover, and hitting the over on 51. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I'm going to say 43-20 Fresno State. This Fresno State team is very good. This Arizona State team is terrible. The point being that even if it's not that large, the 3-point margin for Fresno State winning is just tiny. It's so small. And the reality is that this Fresno State team is still leaps and bounds ahead of where Arizona State is right now. Arizona State is at least in my eyes, probably the worst Power 5 squad. And in a relegation system, they would be down in the Mountain West right now. But I think Fresno State has no problem beating the brakes off Arizona State this year. Next up, we got Kansas at Nevada. Kansas taking a road trip. Kansas is the favorite. They're favored by, let me see what this is, 28. And then the total is 59.5. I think Kansas wins, and they win big, and they hit the over on 59.5. The model that I have says Kansas will put up 70 to Nevada's 13. I don't know if Kansas is going to put up 70, but the point stands that Nevada does not have a chance. Kansas is going to win, and they're going to beat them big. I was not high on this Kansas team heading into this year, but they've proven me wrong so far. They'll just keep on trucking so far this year. So Kansas wins in a big one where the offense has come to life, more so due to the fact that Nevada's defense is terrible, and their offense is terrible too. So those two combined are the fact that Kansas is going to sleepwalk through much more than a 28-point win. Next up, we have UTEP at Arizona. Arizona is the favorite. They are favored by 17 points, and the total is 56. I'm picking Arizona to win. I am picking Arizona to cover, and I'm taking the under on 56. Right now, my score is Arizona 37, UTEP 13, so a 24-point win. I just saw UTEP got demolished by Northwestern. I saw that, and I'm like, oh boy, this is a bad-looking UTEP squad. Arizona is much better than Northwestern. They're going to pick this team apart. So I don't think UTEP has a chance. That 17-point line is generous. I have it at 24-25, and Arizona is going to deliver. Right? At least in my eyes, I don't see them having any problem at all with UTEP so far. And that concludes this episode of the New Year's 6 podcast. Tune in throughout the rest of the week as I start my individual game previews for the games that I listed. So LSU, Mississippi State, Kansas State, Missouri, Minnesota, North Carolina, Washington, Michigan State, and Tennessee, Florida will be the 5 games that are discussed in depth this week. But yeah, thank you all for your time. Leave your thoughts below. What are your thoughts for the week? What did you think of week 2? What are you thinking for week 3? All that fun stuff. and much more. So thank you all for your time today. Thank you all for tuning in, and tune in next time for the next college football video I've got.